Simon, first of all, your reaction to the AFL's announcement today, and then secondly, the 11th of June has returned to play. Can you give us your thoughts on those?
Oh, the immediate reaction, Mark, is I think we're all excited that we've got a level of certainty. We've all been operating in an environment whereby there's a large degree of uncertainty in relation to the year ahead. So to know that we've got return to training plan over the next 3 to 4 weeks, plus June 11 as the official restart date of the competition is pleasing. It allows us to plan a little bit more from a resourcing perspective, a people perspective, and just a sheer fact, I think all of us are pleased that there's a restart date for footy.
How much of a logistical issue is it the hubs, and how much is the club embracing what's ahead?
Yeah, there's a significant amount of organisation and logistics that are involved in it. It's clearly wasn't our preferred option. Understand that we would have liked to have played under a more traditional environment, but the reality of the situation requires us to head over to South East Queensland for that first 4 week block. And it's a challenge that we're now embracing. We're certainly looking at it in that context. We're going to an environment, quickly learnt that Western Australian weather is the best in the world, but this is probably not far off. Staying in a part of the world that has elite training, preparation, rehabilitation, facilities. We've got a young group that's really starting to identify its own identity and culture. So anyone that knows professional sport understands that when you can go on those trips away, sometimes they provide some of the most valuable opportunities for the group to continue to grow and spend time together. So there's a lot to like out of it, although clearly we've got one eye from an administrative perspective on how we can get games back here as soon as possible as well.
And so will those games in the hubs, do you know at this point, be counted as home or away?
Yeah, I think the way to look at it, Mark, more effectively is to look at it as a home state game or otherwise, as opposed to the traditional home and away methodology which we look at it, in the sense that I have a level of confidence that the AFL will look to try and get as much equity as it possibly can in relation to how many games you play in your home state. So if you take, for an example, 2 Melbourne clubs playing against each other in Victoria, in reality, that should really appear as if that's a home game for each of them. What it is commercially is a different thing, and whose home game it is commercially slightly differs. But the reason I state that as an example is because there could be a fair few Victorian teams who play in their home state in the first part of the year, which may mean they have to travel significantly in the second part of the year. Yeah, I've got a level of confidence and faith that in the situations that arise that allow us to have home games here, then that will be likely to occur. I think there's certainly a stated ambition of the AFL to make it as equal as it possibly can. Hasn't been able to for the initial start of the season, but things are going to change so significantly. We've seen them change so regularly over the course of the last couple of months, and we've got a 4 week training block and another 4 week block of the restarted season. So who knows where we're going to be in 8 weeks. Now, whether that's a softening of the borders here in South Australia or if not, I've got a level of confidence that there's flexibility in the fixture to mean that we should have home games here during some stage this year.
How do you build a hub? What sort of position do you think that puts the Dockers in for this season?
I think I mentioned at the start, it gives us some real opportunities on a number of different levels. As a young group, as I said earlier on, who are really starting to build their own culture, an emerging playing group, scattered with some established stars. Whether it's a pre-season camp for 4 to 6 weeks or an opportunity to hit the road during a regular season, it's often when you get some of the most valuable experiences as a group. So I know that's going to be of significant value to us. It's a different environment, but one we're really, looking forward to taking on as a challenge. No, nothing specific as yet, because we actually don't know when we're playing. We know that the June 11th is the start date for that restart of round 2, effectively. So we'll understand first and foremost when our actual game itself is. We don't know that as yet, and then figure out through our coaches and players as to the best time for us to head off.
We're also mindful that the Western Derby won't be played up there, back here. That's a bit of guesswork. Is that sort of towards your thinking as well?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think in keeping with that thought process of keeping flexibility in the fixture, keeping the derby up our sleeve is really important. I think we're still holding out a bit of hope that there might be crowds perhaps later in the year too. So you'd love to have that game as one to herald footy back in WA, which would be fantastic. But who knows? In the event that we need to come back and quarantine, both sides might be able to do that and have that game as something to play during that period. So to keep that fixture itself as something up our sleeve as a float is really important.
So the club is fairly open to the idea of having to quarantine and come back into WA eventually?
Not preferred, but we'll be guided by the state government. I think we've all seen the terrific job the McGowan government's doing in relation to the disease itself and the measures that have been put in place. So at the moment it requires quarantining. If that is the case when we come back in, we'll have to abide by that. But as I said early on, the one constant in this year's been change, and being flexible and making sure we can be agile enough to cope with that is something that's really important for us. Yes, yeah. So the Eagles and us are confirmed as staying at the Royal Pines, yeah.
In terms of, you don't have as many young families as opposed to the Eagles, but how big a factor was that to get that element included?
Yeah, it's really important, Mark. Clearly the element of having the capability of having families in a hub like that is critical. We've got, as you say, not perhaps as much as some other clubs who have a lot of young children within their playing group, but it's just not the players alone. Also, we've clearly got coaching staff and the like who have got children and families and partners. So to have that as an option for us to engage in is really important.
Just going back to the first 4 weeks, is there any, from what you've heard, of clubs flying in to play you up on the Gold Coast, be it Victorian or New South Wales clubs? I
certainly think that was the thought when it was at that point earlier this week, just West Coast and ourselves looking likely to head up there. Now that the 2 South Australian clubs as well as us are up there, I'd say it'll be mostly played between those sides, I'd think. But again, we haven't had confirmation of that yet.
Were you happy to get Queensland over Victoria?
What's that?
Were you happy to get Queensland over Victoria as a hub?
Oh, well, essentially we had some choice in relation to that. So we worked through a whole bunch of different combinations and options in that sense. So whilst there were limitations in what we could and couldn't do as a coaching staff, playing group, we felt on balance that was the right thing for us.
And I suppose you go through the same protocols of the testing today, which I assume went all well, and you have to go through up in Queensland the mandatory flu shots, the whole rigmarole? Yeah,
absolutely. So I think what's really important for us as a code is significant amount of protocols and requirements that have been thrust upon us that you can look in a number of ways that we're being told to do this or required to do this. The reality is it's a bit like our licence to play. We need to ensure that we're doing everything we possibly can to limit the spread of the disease, both because it's the right thing to do from a community perspective, but in reality now that we're going back to play, we want to ensure we have a full squad available as well too. So we've got to be really professional in our approach in that sense. People talk about the new normal and twice weekly screening and tests for COVID-19 being normal is probably going to be hard to get used to, but by the same token, it's just something we have to accept.
You get a sense from the players and I guess the whole club and the AFL industry as a whole, you just can't wait to get back to what you normally do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all understand that AFL footy's just one part of society, and this whole last 3 months has been so much bigger than any one industry or any type of sport or anything else. It all tends to pale into insignificant when it comes to matters of public and community health. But in the instance that we can get it up and going, what that does for community wellbeing and interest levels and the like, I think there's going to be a fair bit of excitement and enthusiasm around it.
Just on the coaching thing, I know across the league that cuts are being made, had to be made. It's still some heartache, I guess, across the league, including, I presume, here.
Yeah, we're still working through a lot of that, Mark. Obviously, this has been confirmed in the last couple of days, and what we're working towards at the moment is a return to training phase, if you like. So a 4-week period as we build up towards the restart to the season. We're just understanding what the ideal structure for us is as we approach that period, and then we look again at some differences in and around the return to play scenario as well too. So it's been a challenging 3 months from a people and cultural perspective, and that certainly continues. My understanding is a pretty big resort. I think they could have got probably 4 or 5 teams in there by the sounds of it. So I think in reality we'll clearly cross paths, but I think most of the key facilities are separate and allow us to do our own thing. So maybe it's a good thing we're not playing the Derby the week before. Otherwise, the resort pool could have got interesting.
Was it good to see Jesse Hogan back at the club today? It's probably been a few months for him.
Yeah, terrific. Jesse's done some fantastic work just on personal level in recent times, and that's an ongoing process for him and something that we're incredibly supportive of. And we'll just continue to work with him as he confronts that and works through that. And as you said, it was great to see him back in and around the club.
Is he hopeful of heading to Queensland with the squad?
Something we've got to work through. As we said the whole way along, Jesse's return to play scenario isn't about the next available time. It's about the right time, and that's something we're still really committed to. It's a bigger picture at play in that sense, and I know we're looking forward to continuing to see that progress.
And how are the quarantine guys going? They're about halfway through now, or touch over?
Yeah, exactly. Haven't got too much longer to go. I haven't checked in, but I assume their gaming capability continues to improve based on the fact that they're inside and not doing much else. But no, they're going really well. Clearly, we were granted an exemption from the state government and the Commissioner for Police to allow them to train under specified circumstances. So they're doing that every day, as well as doing everything they need to abide by the quarantine restrictions. So yeah, they're getting there.